Hey guys, welcome back. Happy Sunday, right, for you guys. Yeah, I am posting this video a little earlier than usual because I haven't really had time to update Twitter, so I kind of just wanted to get my thoughts out and give you times to, kind of time to like kind of process it, whatever. So, we were obviously expecting a one final, that small wave five to the upside before we started coming down. Obviously, I was wrong. That did not happen. I probably got too greedy, right? But it's fine. It's probably the first mistake I've made in like 3 months. So I'm not too mad about it. So I kind of wanted to, discuss my thoughts from this point forward because we're kind of in a crucial, area right now. Because zoom if I zoom out, right, you'll be able to see this is kind of a channel we have been in, right? So the first sign that I should have seen was when, we were kind of sideways here, and when this candle did not recover, right? That's probably when I should have turned short. But yeah, I just kind of like, just kind of thought we would have some kind of ending diagonal, probably just overcomplicated that. But yeah, nevertheless, the bigger picture, like nothing has really changed because I was kind of expecting this wave four down, right? Relatively soon. And I did warn last week that we were getting to very frothy conditions, right? So it was only a matter of time before we sold off. So I am kind of expecting two things, and they're both not bearish in the short term, and I will go over that and I will show you a more bearish path as well. So here's what I'm thinking, right? So the first scenario is that, we're kind of in that wave four, right? And what I potentially see, right, happening is that we could, right, continue like this is support, right? We break below 4492. We pretty much, right, should probably continue selling lower, right? And then kind of expecting this wave forward to kind of end around 4400, right? It could go down to like 4355, right? Before we again wave five, which I've always had, right? After the bigger wave three. So no surprise here in terms of what I'm telling you. Or alternatively, right? This entire thing is your ABC in A, right? We go up for the B wave, right? We reject this area and we come down for that C wave, which is obviously a more complicated structure than what I initially showed you, right? Where we just sell off and then the dip gets bought. So this would kind of be more tricky and more complicated, which again, wave fours, right? Especially wave fours, they are super tricky. So that's kind of the reason why, I am also including this is I could completely see this play out where again, we kind of just retest that area like we did on Friday before you kind of sell off, before it goes higher. So these are still my primary scenarios. I am totally expecting this dip to get bought. I don't think we topped before September, but again, something to be cautious about, like I mentioned, is this is the channel and we broke into the channel. So what tends to happen, right, on channels is they tend to go top to bottom, right? And you could kind of stay sideways for a bit, but eventually they do come to the bottom of the channel. So I'm obviously thinking that this wave four, wave five, as usual, before we come down to the bottom of the channel. But something to keep a note is if you're a bear, you have every wallet, right? I discussed this last week too on why this could potentially be a topping area, right? You have every reason for this to be an ABC, right? And it come down for that C wave all the way to the downside. And what that would look like if you're a bear, this is kind of what you would need to see, right? Follow through next week, which bull or bear, kind of what I expect. And wait, before I discuss the bear scenario, something I should point out is the fact that, like you can see here that we're at the 0.236 FIP, and that is the very minimum that is kind of required out of a wave four kind of retracement, right? So, even though I am kind of expecting a dip, like I have to, kind of point out that I do count, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves to the downside. So, and this is an ABC already, like I mentioned, right? So, it has every reason, right? You can see here, if I fib the most recent low to the high, you can see that we're at the 0.5, right? And a little bit below the 0.618 fips. So something to keep a note is that sometimes C waves, right? They don't need to make a new low. They can easily, right, just kind of form a higher low here before they push higher. So I don't want you to rule out the fact that the dip could just get bought and we keep going to new highs, but it's kind of on the back burner given that, right? Look at this weekly, like this is a pretty bearish engulfing, right? It's engulfed like 2.5 weekly candles. Such kind of candles usually have follow through, which is kind of why I think that we do follow through to the bottom before it gets bought higher, right? But yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, right? If it would be the rare occurrence that bearish engulfing does not follow through, then I would say wait, right? Your confirmation for bull would be 4561, and then it would be, you can kind of chase. So yeah, back to the bear version, right? So what can you expect as a bear version is we push down, right? For a wave one, same all the way down to like 4,400, 4,355, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's kind of what your bear chart would kind of look like, right? So yeah, keep in mind, if you are super bearish, like bears need to follow through. And I would say they would definitely need to break this consolidation, right? You can see this was the most recent support. So if you do want to stand a chance, right, break 4,400, and then you need to break 4,222. This is the most important break, right? Because since, September of last year, we've just kind of been channel surfing. So I don't want you to lose perspective of that. And we can. Something to note is you can see the wave one top is only a 4,205, right? So wave four, you can see that this wave two was shallow. So wave four can just as easily, right, come down all the way to, let's say, 4,255, 4,240, and even push higher. And that would be the most trickiest scenario. So yeah, I know I've mentioned a lot of scenarios, but I just want you to be prepared for all scenarios, just given where we are in the market structure. So hopefully that is helpful, right? And even on NQ, it's kind of the same thing, right? We kind of come down for that wave four, whether it's a bounce and come down, or we come down before we go higher for the wave five. Kind of always been the game plan. I kind of just remembered that I actually charted the market, right? And I did have us topping it. For some reason, I did not look at this chart last week. So yeah, kind of my bad. But yeah, I mean, given I haven't looked at this chart actually in quite a few months, so far it's actually been playing out pretty well. So I'm just kind of going to stick with this, right? So QQQ and Q all covered. And as I mentioned, right, the reason I don't think the top is in, you can see IWM has barely been phased through this. So probably will come down to max of 192, right? 191 before it goes higher for the wave five. So I'm probably still, still team bull, right? I haven't pivoted from that, but I do think we could have some weakness early next week, given the, the weekly candles that I've shown you about. And the dollar, right? Let's kind of look at where we are on the market. So we discussed two scenarios, right? Where the dollar bounces off the bottom of this channel, pushes to the top, or this could be a bigger ABC with the green. Again, for that ABC to play out, the dollar would obviously need to break 103.6. So far, it hasn't done that, right? If you go to the 4-hour chart, we can see that the dollar actually kind of had a sell-off end of the day, right? So that could be indicating more, weakness. But I do probably, right? You can see channels tend to go up and down, right? So probably get supported, has that push that causes weakness in equities before it kind of has that final sell-off. So that's kind of what I'm seeing in the dollar bigger picture. The yields obviously broke my 4% level, but as you can see here as well, they did get pretty weak, right? It's unable to kind of sustain over that 4% area. So I mean, if you are like bearish on the markets, you would like the yields to bounce off of here and continue, right? And that would kind of be a bull flag breakout. But yeah, if you're kind of on the same page as me and you don't really think the yields are going to hold over 4%, at least not yet, right? And you think it's going to come down, then you would, again, a bounce needs to make a higher low before it follows through. That's kind of my bullish argument on the market as well. All right, with that being said, let's kind of go to this week's watch list. And I did put AMD on it. I didn't have time to update Twitter. And what I want to point out is, yeah, I hope, like I told you, we were still in the range as long as we stay above 105, right? We were still good. So far, we did good. So, I mean, if the market does have weakness, right, like it tries to go down to the bottom, I could definitely see AMD, right, come down for the wave 2. But I think compared to the other stocks, AMD might actually, have a chance to break out. You can see that the wave 2 would kind of be a channel retest, right? So this 112, 111 is kind of where I'm looking for it to bounce before it goes higher. And if wave 2 doesn't go that deep, and it probably gets over 119, then it probably continues to move higher, right? Because if I go to the weekly chart of AMD, you can kind of see that we've kind of been sideways for 6 weeks. Been constructive, but not constructive enough. And again, the stop, right? You break 105. Actually, I would say, right, you can kind of see this is the channel on AMD. So yeah, I mean, on the weekly, it looks like 105, but I'd probably give it room plus or minus $2, right? We could definitely come down to the bottom of this and bounce as well. If this is not, so this entire thing was an ABC, right? That bounces off of this. In either case, like I said, AMD, I still expect 130, 140 before it actually tops. And that's still the same thought process. So last week we discussed Meta, right? How it could potentially, if it moves to like 330, 333, it's going to be a short. You can see that we moved there. We came down all the way to the bottom and we kind of just gone sideways. I still see further downside, right? But I do think the market's kind of like followed through on the bearish engulfing. The Meta is probably a nice candidate, right? Needs to break, right? This low at 309.50. You break that, then it probably should come down to 300, 295, and 290. So those are my targets. On Meta, the next one I have is FSLR. I posted this on Twitter. I've been consistent in what I say, right? I think FSLR has stopped. It could go sideways, but it's definitely going to sell off and come down. And it's got a lot of gaps to fill as well. So again, we haven't, right, broken the trend. We could just as easily bounce off of 188, right, to push up to 211 and then come down lower. Or if we can break 185, 180, right, then it should follow through. You can see, right, very bearish structure. It's just a matter of time. But if you are trying to short this, you need to get 2024 or later puts, nothing before that. All right, the last one I have is Tesla, and kind of the same thing I spoke about the market, right? Probably comes down, right? Fills its gap. It does have a gap to fill to like 235, 245 to 235. Any one of these zones could hold depending on where the market kind of wants to bounce off of. But yeah, I still see this dip, right? Again, if I zoom out, you can see that would probably just be a breakout retest, right? Before it pushes higher. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of what I see on Tesla. All right, guys, thank you so much. Have a great week.